household shout out his name.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming over here and tuning in and hanging out. Hopefully the notifications get sent out. Maybe this video might get somewhere, because this is probably one of the most important videos that I've done in a long time. And I can cover all the articles of corruption and judges, problems with the people's mental stability, but without people understanding what's actually happened to society, which has been happening for quite some time, but this really ramped things up. This we're going to dive into a Rogan podcast. It's a 4-minute video. Very much information, very much good information is going to come out of this. But the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was signed into law by the great divider, Barack Obama. Now, the problem that we're running into here is that a lot of people don't know about this. I've talked to a lot of people who are America First, who understand what is going on in our country, that there's a problem with the legitimacy behind a lot of the media that we're consuming. And not just news. This covers, artwork, internet searches, television shows, movies, and yes, mainstream media, mainstream news. And it even ties into just watch the weather and see how they produce weather forecasts and what they do to try to fearmonger people into stuff. Anyhow, let's listen to this man talk a little bit. He does a great job in presentating what's going on. Here we go.
Are you familiar with the Smith-Mundt Act?
Is that the 2011, 2012 thing where Obama allowed people to use propaganda against United States citizens?
Yeah, that was what was done then under Obama was the effective repeal of it. It was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. But the modernization got rid of the whole purpose of it, the firewall, because at the time the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. Media influence because everything moved after World War II from kinetic warfare and military occupation. We used to militarily occupy the Philippines, for example, after we won the Spanish-American War. But that was banned under international law, territorial acquisition by military force in 1948. So we had to win elections, and we had to influence the passage of laws in foreign countries by having an apparatus inside those countries that influenced the hearts and minds of people, which influenced who they voted for, which then determined the government. So you had to move towards political vassalage rather than military occupation. And what the Smith-Mundt Act did is, simultaneous with the creation of this in 1948, Congress recognized the Frankensteinian monster they were creating by authorizing a covert, permanent Department of Dirty Tricks, and this is their phrase, not mine, to do this cloak and dagger, to infiltrate and co-opt the universities, the unions, the media, the politicians, the judges, the whole swarm army. What I have been calling for a long time the USA Truman Show, because it's, these people in these foreign countries have no idea, how many of the things they interact with that are effectively a movie set being constructed by the U.S. State Department and its sister influence orgs. But the point that I'm getting at here is the Smith-Mundt Act in 1948 said, okay, you guys can do this. State Department can do this. CIA can do this. USAID, when it came along 13 years later, could do this. But so there was a guy named Frank Wisner who was known as one of the godfather figures of the CIA. He's known for creating what was called the Wisner's Wurlitzer, which was it's like a church organ, and that he would brag that he could play the international media like a symphony to make any media narrative go viral in any country on earth because of the suite of CIA proprietary media functions and its distribution network, especially when the U.S. had first mover advantage in radio and print. It's basically the U.S. and U.K. were the only games in town, really, in having robust radio, film, TV, and print media. So the Smith-Mundt said, okay, you can do that abroad. You can plant fake news stories in France. You can, have propaganda blare into Africa or Western Europe or Central Asia, but that can't come home. You can't psyop our own people with your propaganda organ abroad, because the whole point of authorizing this is that we get cheaper gas, we get import-export markets, we get a high standard of living, because if a foreign government doesn't want to give up its resources or allow a U.S. military base or allow joint partnerships or exports of goods or U.S. multinational corporations to operate there, then the American people suffer economically. So it was always designed to say, listen, you can do this dirty stuff abroad, but it can't come home. We have and even that protection, which lasted for 70 years, and we only lost it a decade ago. We're up against a much actually deeper, darker problem with this U.S. aid scandal, and as people will see increasingly, the scandals that will break open at the Pentagon and the State Department, which is that we have a Smith-Mundt problem for funding and operations. It's not just propaganda. The blob, our foreign policy establishment, can fund groups that effectively work with prosecutors domestically, or that work at media. Dual use. We give them foreign grants to do media propaganda abroad, but they operate here, or social media censorship to coerce foreign countries to pass foreign censorship laws that explicitly and are intended to attack U.S. social media companies and in U.S. peer-to-peer speech. So we need that protection. If we're going to keep this function at all, we need a hard firewall and absolute grotesque penalties for any violation.
So this is where rubber meets the road. And when I listened to that, I put some pieces together. I said, there's a whole lot more to pulling this U.S. aid than meets the eye, which would then, give me the full understanding why these activist judges have become such a prominent thing now, because they realize that the structure and all of the things that they built for the annihilation of the Western world, this country we live in at this point, is based on the necessity for the propaganda being forced on us and to change how we function. I could show you videos of lefties losing their crap and people setting Teslas on fire and how they're reacting to just being in this world. And what we're looking at is it mental illness? Or better yet, how is mental illness even facilitated? Is it an organic thing? Does it actually, are we mentally ill and wired that way, or are we steered in that direction, triggered to be that way? And there's probably a combination of the two, considering the weakness of minds of people, the malleability at given moments in their life, depending upon age and prior experiences. We can even, we could say, well, we could use that, we could facilitate prior experiences when it comes to the equity of justice. They like to do that. But, just think about the fact of an engineered prior experience of life that would have never been a thing had some of these parents and family members been not subjected to such horrible propaganda, which then changed the way they thought, which then created the actions that then created the manifestation of a person that you can say now doesn't have an equitable life. And then you're going to give away all your normal resources to somebody who's unfortunate due to the fact of the things that you engineered, the non-white community and other people. Think about that. It's like clockwork, and then that manifests into many steps of a degradation of society. And the thing is like, I've often asked whenever Trump was the president the first time, and he didn't. I don't think he understood what was really going on. Why did he not repeal the Smith-Mundt Act? It's signed into law. It's going to take a lot of congressional force to do such. And you got to have a lot of people that are willing to be understanding of what's going on or not be benefiting from what's going on. And with U.S. aid being a thing and everybody getting paid by it, and of course AIPAC controlling society through that, it's very hard to do. So, the next best thing is to pull the money away from a machine that's designed to create the failure of our country. And then you're starting to see the protection of that machine by these activist judges who openly were put in place. And when we leave, I'm going to show you a video of Chuck Schumer openly saying, well, thank goodness we put in these 235 progressive judges, and then double speaks the use of democracy again, their democracy, and then the fact of the machine being put in place. So, anyways, guys, please, everybody needs to, because you know how many people I talk to have no idea about the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act? And so, in my opinion, they need to quit doing this thing altogether, where they're facilitating fake news, fake media to install a government agenda in other countries as well, because this is the product of that. This was the whole reason for that. By the way, you can thank some of the stuff that happened with Hitler And the United States learned this from Hitler. If you actually look at the history of where the United States started getting deeply involved in fake news propaganda and media narratives so that they could facilitate an agenda, they actually learned this from some of Hitler's greatest propagandists who worked for him. Because Hitler just didn't go in places and just, we took it over. No, these people let Hitler come in there, signed it over to him, said, here you go. You're doing a great job. Man, we need you in here. Come on in. So what happened was they were victims of the Hitler propaganda, which normalized what he was doing, and so the government, especially the United States, saw this as an opportunity to rein in on this, and said if we don't do it, somebody else will, and so this is what you've got, and then realizing the power behind it and why stop at other countries, Why should America not fall victim to this, considering the fact that, everything is going to go globalist anyways? That was the plan. So let me show you Chuck Schumer saying this about the judges, and then we'll call it a day. And thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Please hit that subscribe and like so we can grow this channel. Here we go.
There are those who believe that we are in real time living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges, judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time. And we hope that the appellate courts, when it gets up there in the Supreme Court, will uphold those rulings. They restored the money to NIH. They required that 8,000 federal employees have to come back. We're in over 100 lawsuits against them, and we are having a good deal of success. It's only at the lower court level right now.
And I'm a little concerned about the higher court levels. Extremely concerned about the higher court levels, considering the fact that my last video I talked about yesterday was the affiliation with Justice Roberts and Boseberg and all those other crazy leftist judges hanging out in an elite club where you probably don't want to know what goes on behind the room with the closed doors. There's a reason why, a lot of the stuff hasn't been taken, I'm not going to go into much of that. But long story short, watch my last video about Justice Roberts and the elite club that he hangs around, and that will tell you everything you need to know. And Ketanji Brown is part of it, all that. And, there's so many, and other justices now are starting to fall in line, because if they don't, the machine that is running and controlling our country will they're in deep. We're in a lot of trouble. So I don't know, guys, but we need to we need to educate people when it comes to this modification of our media, everything, internet, movies, and all. It's a big deal. This is huge. Thank you very much for watching again, like I said, and have a wonderful rest of the day.